Beginning the bulletin with some breaking news on Jammu and Kashmir, former Union Home Minister P Chidambaram sparks a fresh controversy over Kashmir, with Chidambaram now batting for talks with the Hurriyat. Is he turning into a separatist apologist? Attacking the Modi government, Chidambaram has questioned its Kashmir policy and demanded talks with all stakeholders. The former Union Home Minister has also demanded reduction of army personnel and the troop numbers in the valley. He has said that law and order should be now handed over to the state police. Interestingly, Chidambaram also has questioned JNK's accession treaty and said that there is a dispute towards what he says over the state's accession, and he added that the terrorism is not the main issue and it is only a result of what happened during the state's accession. I'm now joined by Shujaul Haq from Srinagar. Shuja, he's been a former Home Minister. He clearly could have done much more, but why this statement now?
Well, Pooja, if you remember, P Chidambaram has, just recently also made a similar statement,
yes,
which to a lot of people was controversial. But what he has tweeted today is basically explaining the entire, entirety of his perspective towards Kashmir issue. He has in fact gone ahead and also tweeted the data of performance in terms of anti-militancy operations in the state of Jammu and Kashmir in last 1 year, quoting how the number of killings in terms of security forces that have only gone ahead and increased as compared to the other years. So basically questioning the approach of the state government as well as the central government towards dealing with Kashmir. However, what is important to notice here is that he is also talking about the recently appointed interlocutor, the special representative from the government to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, Mr. Dineshwar Sharma, and also saying that interlocutor is the exercise of finding an interlocutor is important, and he should be given all space to function and work. There are already people who are questioning this particular remark, because when they were in government, when he was a Home Minister, they had also appointed interlocutors and reports were filed, but nothing tangible had come out of that as well. So while on one side he is pointing fingers at the government, a lot of people questioning and pointing fingers back at him.
Shuja, interestingly, of course, we'll wait and watch what are the politicians, whether in Jammu and Kashmir or specifically from the Congress. Would the Congress want to distance itself from Chidambaram's remarks? But Shuja, if I can just ask you here, how do you think this is going to fare with reactions back in the valley? So clearly the separatist organizations would be more than happy to latch on to this.
Well, certainly. I mean, there would be a lot of reactions to, a comment like this. But at the same time, like I was pointing out, last time also when he had spoken on this issue, there were a lot of people who had come forward and, asked questions as to what really were they doing when they were in power. How exactly did they handle the issue of Kashmir? And if they were so sincere about tackling the entire matter, why didn't they find a resolution when the UPA was in power? So, it's a double-edged sword for them. Because if they can question the government at this point of time, there will be a lot of people who will also question their role.
Shuja, please stay on with me. I'm now joined by Gaurav Sawant. Gaurav, all talk, no action. He was the former Home Minister. He clearly could have done much more. But what precisely has P Chidambaram said here?
So Chidambaram is questioning the muscular policy adopted by the Narendra Modi government in tackling the Kashmir issue. And he's raised issues about Dineshwar Sharma being appointed as the special representative or the interlocutor, saying his mandate is not clear. It's a pre-election gimmick. They're going out, but nobody's willing to talk to him, as in the separatists are unwilling to talk to him. And the initiative is not in the government's hands. And as far as Chidambaram is concerned, as former Home Minister, Chidambaram did initiate certain steps. Apart from appointing a committee, he was also in favor of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act being partially revoked from select areas in the Kashmir Valley, which of course then Defence Minister A.K. Antony, did not back him on that and put his foot down, saying AFSPA cannot be revoked. So Chidambaram has a different take on Kashmir, in which incidentally the Congress party itself had distanced itself from his approach. So there was Chidambaram and Omar Abdullah seeking the revocation of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, even if from 6 districts in the valley and the state, but everyone opposing it. Now he's questioning the Narendra Modi government's muscular approach, saying that if it was supposed to end terrorism, end infiltration or bring terror down, it hasn't succeeded, and the attack on Letpura is a pointer to that fact.
Gaurav, but why this sudden spurt of reactions from P Chidambaram? Was it some specific questions that he was responding to? Was there probably some locus standi that he was responding to? Because at this juncture, for him to suddenly prompt with these statements also seem a little bizarre and out of place. But I'm sure that politicians would be quick to latch on to this.
Pooja, you cover Kashmir very closely. You are well aware of what's been happening in terms of Jaish-e-Mohammed attacks on security forces in the Kashmir Valley. We've lost 4 Jammu Kashmir police personnel in an IED blast just yesterday. Again, an attack which has been claimed by this Pakistan-based terrorist organization. Then the attack on Letpura. Then the other attack on security forces. There's been a spike in infiltration attempts from the Pakistani side. So all of this goes on to indicate, at least that is what Chidambaram is arguing, that despite the muscular policy that's been adopted by the Narendra Modi government, neither is infiltration down nor is terror down. On the other hand, the government argues that more than 220 terrorists have been killed.
Gaurav, please, if you could stay on with me. I'm now joined by Dr. Subramanian Swamy from the Bharatiya Janata Party. Dr. Swamy, former Home Minister, could have done so much more in his capacity, but now says in a series of reactions on social media that muscular policy of the BJP not working in Kashmir, and of course using some more controversial words for Jammu and Kashmir.
Well, those who commit crimes should not complain about the lawlessness in a society. The problem is the last 70 years we have been saddled with this, and it's got more and more complicated. It got worse during the period of the UPA. You must remember that Kashmir problem became a problem only because Jawaharlal Nehru chose to go to the UN. Unlike Hyderabad, which we solved in no time because we did not do this foolishness of going to the UN. This is a legacy of the Congress. And we are trying to get the problem solved. It's going to take a little time. But Chidambaram has no moral authority to speak on this issue because he is guilty as they can be, having been 10 years cabinet minister and having done nothing.
But what do you have to say when he specifically said the muscular policy is probably not working from the BJP side? Do you think the Congress really didn't do? Because let's not forget, Congress has that interlocutor committee that was never literally tabled in the parliament. The responses never sought. So do you think the Home Minister himself would have a lot to answer before he decides to preach?
I think he should improve his English first. There is no muscular policy so far. We have just given a rap on the knuckles to Pakistan so far. The muscular policy will come when we decide to break Pakistan into 4, like we was earlier on broken into 2. Pakistan is not a viable country, and now more and more countries are realizing it, and particularly the patron of Pakistan, namely the United States, has recognized it. And after that, we will take muscular policy.
Dr. Swamy, do you also feel that at some level it is imperative to probably seek any of his opinion, to take it into consideration, whether he says that, whether it is on OFSPA, whether he says on interlocutors, or you think that probably none of his suggestions should be taken into consideration by the government?
Of course not, because he is presently under investigation for an imminent prosecution in the SL matters. He has no right to speak.
All right, Dr. Swamy, thank you so much for giving me that perspective from your side. I'm also now joined by activists from the minority community. Amit Rena is joining me right now. Amit, when you hear of a former Home Minister saying that the muscular policy is not really working, interlocutors are basically not showing any results, as a member of the minority community, what do you have to say to that?
I'm surprised that someone who sat on interlocutor reports for many years today suddenly remembers interlocutors which have been appointed by the new government. Okay. So Chidambaram technically has no moral right to speak on interlocutors, as he himself has been guilty of ignoring and not even presenting the reports to the parliament. So it is easier to preach than to practice. And unfortunately, that's what Mr. Chidambaram is doing.
Do you think when he says that with regard to the interlocutors on the eve of elections of Gujarat, the government appointed Mr. Dineshwar Sharma, but his mandate was not clear? Do you think that the interlocutors heading into the valley do not really have any mandate or even authority?
I honestly, the way the governments have been treating interlocutors for many years now, including many committees which were formed in Kashmir and no action being taken, I would tend to agree with Chidambaram to that extent.
Okay.
But how serious the government of NDA is this time will have to be proven by the NDA government. But yes, going by the previous track records, including Mr. Chidambaram's own track record, yes, I would tend to agree with him here.
What would you want to say to P Chidambaram when he says that the muscular policy is not really working, the military approach is not really working, and that the government needs to find better alternatives? Do you think he could have done that in his bit, or probably these are just words and all talk, no action?
These are only words. In 70 years, if the peaceful approach with Pakistan has not worked, you need to give some time to the different strategy that's being followed.
Amit Raina, thank you so much for giving us this view. He's an activist from the Kashmiri Pandit community. I am still joined by Gaurav Sawant. Gaurav, you're hearing these reactions coming in, whether it is from the BJP or whether it is from these activists. How do you think the Congress should respond to what P Chidambaram has said?
You know, the Congress even last time had distanced itself from Chidambaram as far as the Armed Forces Special Powers Act was concerned. You'd recall that A. K. Antony, as Defence Minister, had stood by the army saying the army cannot function without the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And when you look at the picture from hindsight, could the army have functioned in the valley with terrorists operating with impunity in parts of Srinagar or Budgam, which were some of the areas that had been earmarked for revocation, for partial revocation of AFSPA? You know, the terror tap is in Pakistan's hands. And as Amit Jaina was just pointing out, there was a certain policy that was being adopted for the past 70 years. There is a new policy that is being put in place. It will take more than just one summer to get a response to that policy. Again, a policy which has seen certain flip-flops. Perhaps it needs more time to see what impact this policy has. And one thing is very clear, the government's made one thing very clear, Pooja.
Yes.
Terror and talks cannot happen simultaneously with Pakistan. Similarly, terrorists cannot force the government to come on the negotiating table, that you don't stop anti-terror operations to start talking. If the Hurriyat doesn't believe in the Indian Constitution, government's made it very clear, all talks are only within the ambit of the Constitution.
All right. Fair enough. Executive Editor Gaurav Sawant giving us that detailed perspective on former Home Minister P Chidambaram stating the military approach is not working, interlocutors have no mandate. What next by the Modi government?
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.